While we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but because they were born to honor the thin blue line. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
Hey everybody, it's Michael Laidler, your host of the LEO First Podcast, and I am coming back to you. Actually, my second podcast of the day. I know when I release it, it's not going to be 8:42 in the morning Central Time, but it will be something that shows how much I love what I do on this podcast. And one of the things that I realize is that there's always so many opportunities to connect with people and learn their stories and to understand how much goes into the life of a law enforcement officer. And part of that is hearing other people besides myself speak and explain what they have going on. And I can tell you the guest that we have on today, we actually met in Dubai at the World Police Summit. And some of the things that he has experienced from that or even before is remarkable. And if you see me guys looking down or looking at the screen, I'm looking at LinkedIn because I wanted to make sure I was able to tell you all the things he has going on because it's quite remarkable. Let's start off by saying he was a lifeguard in LA. Some things that people made hot, but hey, he was saving lives before he was saving lives. Then he's done work with the National Association of School Safety and Law Enforcement Officials. He's been part of the Los Angeles School Police Officers Association. He's been part of PORAC. He is one of my favorite groups. He is a FBI NA graduate. He's also been part of the California Coalition of Law Enforcement Association. He's been a board member of the California Governor's Public Safety Medal of Valor Review Board. Oh, let's keep going, guys. And trust me, we're not done yet. We're scrolling through. He was a lieutenant for the Los Angeles School Police Department. He's the co-founder of Friends of Safe Schools USA. He's also the current president of the National Association of School Resource Officers. I know they just had a conference not too long ago, and that, from what I saw on social media, it looked amazing. He is currently the assistant chief of police in city of Golden Valley, Minnesota, and we kind of talked about it before the pre-show. Minnesota and California are a little different. He's also a representative member of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And finally, it looks like the most recent thing that he got himself into is the Minnesota Justice Research Center, where he's a board member as well. Now, you guys, I know I don't always highlight everybody's experience like I did with or I've done with our guests, but it shows that if you want to be impactful and you want to be part of something more than just your agency, there's a lot of opportunities out there. And if you don't remember everything I said, you can find all that is on LinkedIn because he wants you guys to understand, like, hey, I'm promoting the growth of this industry. And I recommend it. And we'll talk about how we can reach out to him later. But just know that people are out there making a lot of improvements and changes to make this industry better. And our guest is no different. Now, you guys have been hearing me say guest, and I'm sure you've probably seen if you're watching the video version of it. But today we do have Rudy Perez on the line and on the air with us. Rudy, tell us what you want us to know about you.
Well, first of all, Michael, thank you so much for bringing me online. And it was a beautiful encounter when we met in Dubai. When you meet somebody that has the same spirit, same mind, you automatically click and you go, hey, man, what a great two Americans sitting in Dubai making an impact because Dubai wanted to hear what Americans want to hear, what are doing, right? American leadership and law enforcement are doing. And to meet you there was a divine connection. That's what I always say. It's a pleasure to be where I'm at. A little bit about me. I'm an immigrant to this awesome country. I immigrated from Guatemala when I was young. Two amazing parents. So I wasn't born here. English is my second language. I always tell people this. So along the way came lifeguarding, like you said, and I was like, Mom, what are those boxes out there? And I went one day. I went to the beach with her. She's like, those are lifeguards, and they're like, wow, that's awesome. And you walk by the pool. What do they do all day? They get paid to be by the water all day. I'm in. And long story short, at 13, I became a junior lifeguard that propelled my career into first responders. In the beginning, I guess I wanted to be, I don't know what crazy, I wanted to be a fireman, but you know what? There was a freeze, and I said, no, I'm not going to be a hose dragger. I'm going to be actually saving actual people's lives, getting in there first before that. So I became a police officer at 21 with the LA School Police Department, where I've led 22 years of law enforcement, went up the ranks from officer to training bureau to detective to sergeant, left as a lieutenant. Had the amazing opportunity to come out to Minneapolis, in the city of Minneapolis, in the suburb called Golden Valley. And here's where I was offered an assistant chief position where I'm leading an amazing organization, an amazing group of men and women that truly love moving forward. It's a progressive agency that we have the ability to make an impact in so many ways. But here's where I'm at now. And I think my career's has been an awesome career. And you're right. I've been involved in so much other than my day-to-day agency. And I think you're absolutely right. If you have the ability to make an impact, and it does take time. It takes time from your family. It takes time from other places that you want to be. You're not working the overtime. You're making an impact on other organizations that you're probably volunteering or giving some of your money at. But I can honestly tell you, every organization I've been to has positively impacted my career in the right direction, but also I've been able to grow and bring people along the way to make an impact in law enforcement. And not only in law enforcement, but in our communities. We've been able to give so many toys and school supplies and meals that we did as a young officer. A friend of mine named James Ream, both of us started this organization, and we make the impact across the world. So it started in California. Now we have an office in Pennsylvania. There's also an office in Miami that are driven by police officers, and they're working at their own place. And now here in Minnesota too. So that's the impact that where I'm at today, and it's in a nutshell. But thank you so much for allowing me to be here and having this organic conversation with you.
Yeah, and I love how enthusiastic you have, because as I mentioned, it's early in the morning, and I'm a morning person. You may be a morning person as well, but I know you have a lot of stuff going on. One things we talked about was that you just moved in, you got your new house up there. Obviously, changes are tough for us in law enforcement, and going from a state like California, especially, and it wasn't like any city in California. You were in LA, the busiest one in the state, at least from my understanding. Now you go to Minnesota, and I don't think Golden Valley is the biggest city in Minnesota. So you go from such a large lifestyle and a fast lifestyle to a great place like Golden Valley. How do you adapt as a person, like through speed? Like, how do you manage that time wise? How does that work?
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I always say this. You have it's the tale of two cities, and I'm adjacent right next to Minneapolis. So anything that affects Minneapolis affects us. And some of the challenges that Minneapolis is dealing with, we're dealing with also. But I can tell you this, it's the same beast. It's the same challenges. If anything, sometimes you'll see a little more dynamics of micro politics, I would say, that start affecting certain agencies. But at the same time, I have to adjust to the weather. I've had to adjust to clothing. That's been a whole other world for me, where I've been such a short sleeve or a long sleeve guy at work in California, never worried about a jacket, never worried about an umbrella, never worried about if my car has four wheels or not. The adjustments of even crime trends that occur during the winter versus the crimes that occur during the summer, two different avenues. But it's been a great learning place for me, and I can honestly say the similarities are there, but there's a massive amount of differences. Food wise is a whole different place. You come from Los Angeles that has everything. You might come to Minneapolis that it's not everything. If I want to get some fresh sushi today, it's not the freshest sushi you get today, right?
Yeah, that is true.
those are the things. Unless you want walleye sushi, I always say, that's something you can get cooked up the street. But there's the two differences. There's a cultural difference. The Minnesota Nice is a real thing. I always tell people that. But at the same time, it's the same need to feed people, to help people through a process when they're having a very hard time, and when the police gets called out, to help them think through that process. It's the same. It's the same need. So the policing aspect, there's a few things that are challenging. It's nice to come to a city that is well off, that is financially has and supports its police officers and its budgets, and equipment wise, you have an agency like Golden Valley that really takes care of their officers, versus the big mega LA contacts that you have, that you're driving a car that's 150,000 miles, while my agency comes in and says, hey, listen, we're going to switch out cars every 90,000 because that's what the recommendation is. And I'm like, that's a brand new car for me back in LA.
I'm gonna have some cool wheels and AC.
Yes, as long as it had wheels and AC, exactly. So it's nice to come to a city that supports them financially, equipment-wise is all there, and then we're growing together as an agency. This agency has truly gone through a lot in the last I would say 2 years, and I am the agent of change. You're right. Chief Green brought me in, and I think some of the challenges that law enforcement has is we don't like the status quo, but we also hate the change. The change in itself. And how do you bring those two worlds together? How do you progress forward? How do you grab these officers' mentality and say, continue to move forward? Let's get better at our trade craft. So that's where I'm at, Mike. It kind of that tells you a little bit about the transition.
Yeah, and it does. And it speaks a lot to your character as well, just as a person. And as you were telling the differences in the two cities and just the cultures, I don't want to say. I was gonna say old sushi and new sushi, but fresh sushi versus the not as fresh sushi. It is a difference. So, with all the things that you've been going through in your life, as far as the different law enforcement, the different boards you've been on, and a lot of them are volunteer, of course. What is your motivation behind all of this? Because it's not surface level motivation. Because if you just want to be in law enforcement, you just keep getting promoted till you get to retirement. You'd be like, okay, I'm done, or get another career doing the same thing. But you're doing the extra things, once again, that a lot of people don't necessarily think they have the time for or don't have the interest in. What is your motivation behind all the other things you are doing to continue to enhance not just the industry, but yourself?
Well, you know what? Growth begins with me. And I'm in an industry that can get stagnant. It can get very systematic. Like, this is the patrol day. This is what we have. This is the new laws. Let's keep moving forward. Somebody committed a crime. We have to address it. And I came to the conclusion, if I didn't expose myself to organizations, whether it was the nonprofit world, whether it was the legislative world with PORAC and CCLEA, whether it was the SRO world and the school safety world with NASRO, it wouldn't refine me to be a leader that thinks at a global perspective to a micro perspective. Fair. If that makes sense.
Yes.
I have the ability to transition into a place where you speak at the World Police Summit with thousands of people and still convey a message that law enforcement worldwide has to have an impact. But yet I'm able to meet with my small community or my small community next door, or a community group that says, hey, what are your challenges? And let me help you at your level. And because I've been exposed to so much throughout my career, good and bad, has given me a perspective to bring resources, that the race that I'm in, the growth that I'm in, is not about me anymore. It's about raising the next generation of mature police officers. Yes. That's what it is about. The race that we're in is, we call it a rat race. You're the rat, but it shouldn't be that way, right? It should be, we're in a marathon, and this is a long-term career. I always tell people four of my things that I tell my officers. As I've learned now, I go, there's four things that you don't jeopardize: your family, your freedom, your life, and your pension. You can't jeopardize those things. Why? Because you've worked too hard. After 20 plus years, you're getting vested. You're getting to a place where all of a sudden you have a bad day, and that is taken from you. One of those things is taken from you. And I tell police officers all the time now, you get paid to think. You get paid to think in situations where people are not thinking clearly anymore, to de-escalate the situation, to have the ability to say, okay, this is not a force issue, this is a mental health issue. So to create impact in my life, to create growth in my life, to create understanding that the world of policing isn't a law enforcement answer. It's an ecosystem that we need to create together. And this ecosystem includes community service partners, mental health workers, parents, right? Family nucleus. How do we create that? So being part of all these organizations has well-rounded me as a leader to say, okay, this is not, we're not alone in this. This has to be a community engagement portion, or that the ecosystem is safe for everybody. And that's why we're there to maintain the safe ecosystem. So hopefully that makes sense to you.
Oh, it does. It does. And that's one of the things why I have a podcast or I do my keynotes and online courses for people, because I want people to know that we're not alone in having resources to make ourselves better. And I love how many things you have done, because it demonstrates that there's so many opportunities for anybody to just expand their knowledge. And I was talking to somebody actually last night. We were having dinner and we were kind of talking about like having a macro versus micro perspective on the industry. And it's like, if you only stay on, let's say, one agency and you do nothing, you're going to have a very small concept on what's available. You're going to have a very micro like mentality of, oh, this. But if you expand out, even if, let's say, for example, you only did your time as a lieutenant down in LA and you spoke in Dubai, just that gave you a bigger perspective and a macro idea of, oh, this is what's going on. For example, when I was there last year, I didn't realize how much they cared about officer wellness. I just didn't think about it because I was like, oh, Dubai, what are they doing? Oh, they have tech, that's it. But one of the emphasis, at least in 2023, was officer wellness. And they have a whole department that's designed just for that.
Yes.
And
yes.
that's what people don't know. Like, that's the cool part. And the fact that you're doing it, it's good for people to hear that.
Yeah. And you're right. And you know what? A Dubai organization like the Dubai police, or, the impact that the UAE is having, I was blown away of how much officer wellness that they have. And I was just saying, I mean, I got to go see some of the officer clubs. I got to go see some of the officer locations. I was like, and this is part of, they don't pay dues to it. This is part of what the agency does for them.
Wow.
And, which is getting me to my point, and my agency, we are emphasizing on officer wellness. And, I always tell people this: there's officers in your agency that have so much talent, right? And they have so much energy. And yet we turn around and we go, okay, go write traffic tickets, or go do this, go do that enforcement. And they're like, okay, no problem. But what I've turned to say is, like, I find people with talent in my agency. I go, you have a talent for whether it's wellness, whether it's working out, whether it's visionary, how to put a gym together. And I pulled somebody in. I said, hey, listen, what do you need to make this gym good? And he just started working on it, pulled in a team together of officers and firemen, and they created this awesome gym at our place now. And people are working out, they're getting in there. There's an organic motion of, when you place leaders or people in your organizations with talent, then they remember the goals they set already. Oh man, we did a great goal. This is a goal already, officer wellness. Now my next goal is, let me push him or her to a little bit of an uncomfortable place, but going, look, same mentality, same goal settings, same concepts that you have. Now we're gonna it's not in this area, but it's in another area. So when you empower your police officers to do something and move in their goal, it's such an impacting way of leading. And I was taught that along the way with some great leaders who said, let Rudy do what Rudy does. They used to call him the Rudyism. My chief would say, let go Rudy do his Rudyism. And it would be, he goes, there's nothing that guy hasn't come back with that hasn't impacted this agency in the wrong way. And guess what? I had my haters too, just like you did. I'm sure you had people that would be like, well, chief, why are you picking Rudy? And I didn't think of this till you said this. He said, till you put the time in that Rudy puts in with all these organizations on his own, then you can do what he's doing too. But it doesn't come free. Some people want to get the outcome of, like, oh, I want to go to Dubai too because I'm just in rank or I'm next. But it's put in the work.
Mhm.
That's what gets you to those places. And I think that's what's impacting for organizations.
Yeah, and because you got to, when we say lead by example, you have to lead, you literally have to lead by example. And
Yeah.
if you're just telling people to do something that you're not willing to do, then you're never going to get to where you're trying to go, because it's just not how life goes. So with all that in mind and all the stuff you have going on, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on social media. I think it's Rudy Perez SRO on Instagram. That's there. You can also find me Rudy Perez on LinkedIn, which is I do a lot of information there, push a lot of information out. Also, my email is always available, is Rudy_Perez at att.net. That's Rudy_Perez at att.net. Please send me an email. And, I'm always willing to have conversation. I'm like you. I travel the country. I get to speak keynote in places that I never would have thought, but I've been able to travel to 28 cities and a few countries across the world and speak on leadership and speak on movement. My forte is obviously school safety, but that all comes back to one thing: do we lead? Do we lead the right way? And every organization's in policing needs leadership with courage, professionally, and empathy. That's the way we should be leading, and that's my heart, Mike.
And that's the important side, because it's good to have that based on all the things you've learned. And you realize, too, once again, the macro side of this industry is that if you really want to make the impact, you can. It's going to take you some time and work, but you can. So that's amazing. Guys, like you said, if you reach out to them, you guys know with my newest push on the podcast, especially over the last month or two, is that you're going to see a lot of stuff on Instagram, because I realize there's a lot of people on there. So guys, keep an eye out for the Instagram tags and stories and reels that we're going to put together. But also, like he said, reach out to him on LinkedIn. He threw his email in there. Reach out if you have something going on, whether it's speaking or you just want to know just how to lead in multiple areas. He's your guy for that. Rudy, any final words?
My final words is thank you. Thank you, because our relationship isn't a relationship that is just a hello and bye and we see each other again. I hope that we get to work together on impactful places. And I will tell people this: take a little bit of time to say thank you to the people around you. Me and you are not successful if you don't have the right family behind you. It just doesn't happen. You got to lead yourself first before you lead others. And that's physically, spiritually too. So I am grateful that God has given me the opportunity and the impact to always touch somebody in the right direction or guide somebody in the right direction. But nothing happens without faith. So I thank God for that. And I thank God for your opportunity to be here. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And as you guys know, this is part of humanizing the badge and showing people how great leaders in law enforcement that we have. And I know from what you all heard, although it was a small snippet, you guys will find impact, you guys will find knowledge, you guys will also find passion from Rudy. And I think just from our time knowing each other and just having the same things, it's funny, if someone listen to this, they might be like, wait, is Michael talking? Is that Rudy? Because Michael's voice is a little different now, but we talk about the same things: leading ourselves before we lead others, putting family first, being spiritual, having a physical, like some kind of standard, because all those are important to help you live the life that you're able to live. And
That's right.
as you build those areas up continuously, not just once, you're going to find that level of happiness that you're looking for. And it doesn't come overnight. It doesn't come by miracle. It comes through putting in that work in all those areas, all those facets. So the fact that you're doing that, Rudy, consistently, it's amazing to hear and see, and for people to understand, like, hey, if you put in the work, it will come. We don't know when, because especially if you're a person of faith, sometimes things you got to wait for. You don't know. You can't dictate it. But fortunately, Rudy, you've been blessed with getting some of these other things very often in life, which is good. And it comes from just putting that work in. But guys, thank you for watching this episode. I know you guys will understand a lot and appreciate a lot. If you guys liked it, which I know you will, like, comment, share, repost, push it out, because we want you all to know the opportunities that are out there for you. And sometimes it's just sitting up there, rolling up your sleeves and applying for things, or meeting the right people, and just meeting people and just being a good person.
That's right.
Like where Rudy's at. So once again, guys, thank you for everything. And Rudy, thank you for your time. Like, I definitely hope we get to work together. You're definitely going to see stuff coming out of social media together. So whether or not we see each other person again, which I think we will, we're going to at least see that. And I know that it'll allow us to connect and hopefully just impact one life, which if I can always tell people, if I can push this episode out and we get at least one person to be better today than they were yesterday, and it helps them move forward, then that's a win for me.
That's right.
So thank you guys. If you need anything, reach out. If not, be safe. And you guys have a great day.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge, The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaellaidler.com and hit the website at michaellaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.